Good morning. This is College Football 134 live on the Covers YouTube channel and Twitter page this Saturday morning. That is Andrew Caley. I am Douglas Farmer. On Tuesday's show, I said we would be exhausted and or exhilarated this morning. Last night's UNLV loss leaves me only exhausted. Great game, but exhausted. Andrew, I don't mean to impugn you. Did you stay up for all of Boise State UNLV?
Of course I didn't stay up. I have a 1-year-old. I fell asleep at half. I was literally sitting there and fell asleep in my chair. That's like the literal old manest thing you can do, falling asleep in the chair watching a football game. But I'll pick up the exhilarated half for you today because I'm jacked for another great day of college football.
It is going to be a great day of college football, and that is why I'm not that frustrated. Yes, I lost money on a Friday night in Las Vegas. Not the first time, probably won't be the last time, but I got to get over that frustration because we do have a great day of college football ahead of us, and I want to encourage everybody. We've already got our show intro was quicker today than usual because we're trying some new assets. We already have two comments in the chat before we even get going. Keep those coming. I need to remind the world, as always, like the video, subscribe to the video, Covers YouTube channel, College Football 134 on all your podcast platforms. But the real thing, Andrew, is we've got to get to the games of the week, and I'm not just talking SEC. Yes, 3 of the 4 games I have allocated here as games of the week are SEC. But there are other ones. You know what? I'm going to jump ahead. No, we'll stick with the order plan.
No, you can do it. Throw me a curveball. No, I'll hit it like Freddie Freeman.
We need to let the world know ahead. Like I see you added a curveball already to one of these games of the week, and I need to let you build into that. I would rather start you off. I'd rather give you a chance to warm up by discussing your favorite player in the country. Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt hosting Texas today.
Andy.
Texas is a 17.5-point favorite. 4:15 Eastern time on the SEC network. I'm looking at that one, and I need somebody to tell me if Vanderbilt has a chance, especially Texas receiver Isaiah Bond is out. Does that make it so Diego Pavia's big playability might be more of a worry for Texas?
I want to take Vandy so badly with these 17.5 points. My heart tells me so badly to back Diego Pavia here. They're at home. They've met every expectation. Every time where they thought they could have had a letdown, they've just kept plowing forward. But I worry about this Vanderbilt defense a little bit against, like you said, Isaiah Bond is out. Who cares? Like Texas has so much depth on that roster. Like, I'm not going to be surprised if some freshman comes out and starts just torching this Vanderbilt defense. They rank 81st in success rate, 99th against the pass. So I don't like Quinn Ewers might not be 100%, but whatever. If it's Arch Manning for a little bit, it's Arch Manning for a little bit. And Sark can open up that jar of worms and make a quarterback controversy this season when he doesn't need one. But Texas's overall depth is what worries me here. And this is not like they're much more consistent than say Alabama was, obviously. Like Texas will grind you out. And that was something that Alabama clearly wasn't capable of. And that's what gives me the worry, their depth and the balance of that offense. So I want to take the points with Vanderbilt, but I just couldn't get there.
You can't, and it's understandable. There is, as much as you were on the Vanderbilt wagon early, you got that over 2.5 win total, and that came home with the most absurd of moments. As much as we like Vanderbilt and love Vanderbilt, there is still something within us like it's Vanderbilt. It's still Vanderbilt. Yeah. I don't think I'm being overly harsh when I put it that way.
I don't think so. Like 99th in the country on dropbacks for success rate, 78th in EPA per dropback. So you can pass on them. And like, this is a really talented Texas offense. So that isn't going to be harassed the same way they were. Like, this is not a Georgia defensive front coming against them in this matchup. So I think that offensive line gets back on track and does their thing, allowing Texas to move the ball down the field.
All right, I should keep pushing us forward. Otherwise, we would spend 20 minutes discussing why Vanderbilt will or will not cover the 17.5. We're really just trying to talk ourselves into it. And anytime that's the case, you need to recognize and pull back.
Take a step back.
Don't make a bet just to make a bet. Speaking of making bets, I woke up this morning, looked at our outline, and somebody wants to get a little frisky in Madison. Penn State at Wisconsin tonight, the primetime game on NBC. Penn State is a 6.5-point favorite. I said it earlier in the year. I know that I often read Wisconsin poorly because the Wisconsin Badgers fans were mean to me in the middle school cafeteria. So I still struggle. I nonetheless was surprised to see this underneath a touchdown. Um, I was real quick on doubting Wisconsin when Tyler Van Dyke went down. Braden Locke had not shown any explosive ability in an offense that already lacked explosive ability. When he replaced Tanner Mordecai last year, the yards per attempt on that offense fell. I expected the same replacing Tyler Van Dyke, especially because that's what we first saw when he replaced him against, was that Alabama that Van Dyke got hurt against? And so
Yes.
I was surprised to see Wisconsin find an offense of late. I don't really know what to make of that. I don't want to believe in it, but it's been there. It's true.
I'm with you, and I don't in the way that I don't believe in it. Rutgers has been a weird team, like beating up on Purdue, like you're doing your job. Northwestern, like sure they won handily, but Northwestern isn't putting up much of a fight anymore these days. And what I can't get out of my head here is Alabama went into Madison and was a 14-point favorite. I know Wisconsin is playing better than they were heading into that game against Alabama. You can make the case they're a better team than they were that many weeks ago. I think it was 5 weeks ago now or whatever it was. But for my money, Penn State is a better team than Alabama is, even at this point. Like, I think that Penn State from top to bottom has the better roster. They have fewer holes than Alabama did. They're the more consistent team, and yet we're getting them less. Like, it feels like a bit of a trap to me getting less than a touchdown, but I'm going to take it. This is the best bet for me. Penn State -6.5 here. I can't hold off on it. I don't see Wisconsin being able to slow down Drew Aller and this Penn State offense with Singleton and Katron Allen. Like, it's just they still rank 81st in success rate against the run. So I think that Penn State offense is going to grind them out for a while, and then Aller's going to hit them over the top, and it's going to be consistent all game. And once again, like, this defense is just a lot better than what they've been seeing lately. Maybe one of the best in the country. Lay the 6.5 points. I love this play. I think they win by 10 at least. We get an awakening. We're going to get another one of those jump around moments where the student section is a little lackadaisical and those jumps are more like it's hopping around. Maybe just a little hop, not a jump around.
When you said jump around moment, I thought you were implying that shortly after jump around, the Wisconsin student section might empty out. They're always good about waiting for the start of the fourth quarter. They don't always see the 14th minute of the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And folks, this is why, yes, we got to get up early, and I like to gripe about that because I'm not a morning person. I don't believe this should exist. But this is why you should be in here right at 9 a.m. Eastern. It's not even 10 minutes in, and Andrew is out here dropping a best bet. Way to get us off and rolling, Andrew. I'm hoping to join you earlier than usual, although I haven't warned you of that. We will see if I get creative later. Our next game that we need to discuss as a game of the week this morning took an interesting turn. I want to confirm the line before I say it out loud. Yes, Missouri is still a 16-point underdog at Alabama, even though starting quarterback Brady Cook is reportedly going to try to play. Now, I want to...
Can I hop in real quick? So that is the move. Like, I was looking at it yesterday, and it was 17.5 at places, and I was like, Jesus, this is going to get to 18. And then last night, the reported, I don't think we've seen an official report, but the reported injury report is he will be upgraded to questionable for this one. Brady Cook is obviously a tough dude. I think he gives it a go. And then you saw the corresponding, like, if you line up when those tweets were coming out and the line moved, then jumped from 17.5 back down to the 16 range.
I do want to lampoon that report a little bit because its second line said, do you know exactly what I'm about to hit on?
No,
its second line
because
was,
that's not you.
Brady Cook's ankle injury is believed to be not as bad as Patrick Mahomes' was. What are we doing here? We're comparing. First of all, we're comparing Brady Cook to Patrick Mahomes. Second of all, we're comparing a game at Alabama. Yes, big game, very important for Missouri. To the Super Bowl. Can we stop? Can we have some idea of context?
Why? I don't understand. Like, I'm sure this guy was like, "This is a great tweet," like, and it's gonna go viral, but for all the wrong reasons, I think.
It would be the equivalent of, if I'm trying to think of the most rambunctious Friday I have had or will have this football season for very obvious reasons. They don't really exist, but it would be, Douglas Farmer was out late last night, but he's going to get up for the podcast. He is not as hungover as Michael Jordan was for the flu game.
Oh my goodness. Anyways, I'll jump into this if you want a bit.
I'm surprised he's trying to play through it. This is not a defense you want to have a gimpy quarterback. And I know Drew Pine is not a great quarterback. I know better than most people. Drew Pine is not an SEC starting caliber quarterback. But do you really want Brady Cook back there banged up going against Alabama? The Alabama defensive front is still pretty good. This is why I took that team total under. I have that team total under. I believe I gave it on. No, I didn't give it on the show. Just in my best bets column. That was in my best bets column on Thursday, and this is why, because I don't think there was any good situation for Missouri, and they've just got to recognize that.
So I wrote this preview for Covers. Go over to covers.com for all of your other college football betting needs. And I took Missouri plus the points at 16.5, with the thought that Cook was going to tough it out because he's kind of one of those gamers, and the line went the other way for a little bit, and it came back. So I was kind of hoping it would jump the other way into like the 15.5 range. And actually, let's just bring it up right now, real quick.
I am seeing 15.5s and 16s.
So there you go. So I got 16.5. So that kind of works out for me in the long run. Basically because Missouri with Cook at quarterback, even a banged up Cook, they have the tools to give Alabama the same problems that they've been dealing with they can do what South Carolina did. They can do what Kentucky did, right? Like, they are able to do this. I know top back Noel might be out for this one too. They've got a good backup in Marcus Carroll, though. He rushes for almost 5 yards per carry as well, so that doesn't worry me too much. He has NFL caliber wide receivers to throw to, and that Bama secondary has been sketchy. So I think Luther Burden could have a very big game here. I know Missouri has not looked the part of a 6-1 team, but man, Alabama's just inconsistency has really bothered me. And now they rank 66th in success rate against the rush. Like, it's weird. 56. And just a very, very interesting time for Alabama right now. I know we've talked about they need this win, or their season is legit. Like, it already might be over, but there's one more loss, and obviously it is over for good. But they just don't have no confidence in them, especially if Milroe's banged up right now, like they're saying. So they want, like, one of their best options right now has been just Milroe doing his thing and tucking it and running it. And now, if that's going to be hampered even more, like, why should I have any confidence in this Alabama team right now, which relies on his explosiveness?
Carlos Bilbao was asking us about Milroe unders, and I haven't checked those. My instinct there is, if we're doubting Milroe that much, and we know Brady Cook is this banged up, I'm looking at an under 51 instead of any specific player props, because both sides of this game should contribute to that under 51.5. It's hard to imagine one team carrying to that number on its own. So if either offense is struggling, we should get that home without much trouble.
Yeah, and like, I know Missouri got crushed by Texas A&M, and everybody's going to focus on that game and this matchup, but we always say, right, like, that was nobody's as bad as their worst performance of the season. That was Missouri's worst performance of the season. The stats still say this is a good Missouri defense. They rank 7th nationally in defensive success rate. Like, this is a good unit. So it's just, I don't hate that underplay at all now that you mention it. And I don't know what kind of, it's hard to know what value you're going to get on player props in college football, particularly when someone's injured like this. So I would prefer, I'd agree with you, and I'd stick to the total as opposed to looking at a player prop here probably.
I am realizing that is probably going to be my first. The last 2 weeks, I have picked up a number of bets just on the day of the show. While we're talking, I'm like, I like that idea. I like that play. That's probably going to be my first one. Those have been profitable for me the last 2 weeks, so I'm going to keep keeping track of those just to make a little bit more money.
Just very quickly here, I pulled it up real quick. Jalen Milroe's passing yard prop over at Bet365 is sitting at 239.5, and his rushing prop is at 42.5. Now that I see that rushing number, I might go under that. Like if if he's banged up, like he's not going to be scrambling as much.
We like to see that's what I mean, that you got, and I'm going to start keeping track of those. If you just found that and you play that today, keep in mind that that came from Saturday Morning Conversation. That came from somebody putting that in the chat. Carlos Bilbao helping lead us to water instead of the usual other way around. We appreciate the assists. We appreciate all the fodder in the chat because it sparks these thoughts. Bobby Newport's pointing out that the passing number might be even a little better somewhere else. And then you could also look at it with the running back props. Maybe go hit Jam Miller as a rushing over if Jalen Milroe is going to be a bit limited. There are ways to look at it, and we need this feedback sometimes to think of those ways.
Exactly. So thanks, guys.
Thank you all, not only for the viewership, not only for the likes, the rates, the reviews, the subscribes, but also for helping us find winning bets. The biggest game of the day, the game that I think has a risk-reward ratio that is hard to fathom, in that the winner is in pole position to reach the SEC championship game, and the loser is on the precipice of missing the playoff, if not pretty much out of the playoff. We've got LSU at Texas A&M tonight, prime time on ABC. A&M is a 1-point favorite, total of 54.5. I had to write this one up, and I was surprised by how willing I am to trust LSU's offense, especially because they seem to have recognized who they are. They are throwing the ball 9.9% more often than an average team would in a given game state. And that's because their offensive line is better at pass pro than run blocking. That's because Garrett Nussmeier looks the stinking part. I am willing, and now I mentioned that risk-reward aspect of this game. It's not quite Georgia kitchen sink at Texas material, but it's pretty close to you got to go all in on this game to keep your bigger hopes and dreams alive. And I'm willing to go with the offensive veteran head coach in that position rather than the first-year head coach at Texas A&M, who's a defensive mind in the first place. It's not a best bet for me, but LSU team total over 27 has all of my attention.
Yeah, it's like you said, Nussmeier has been playing well. They haven't lost since that opener to USC, but we talked about this on Tuesday a bit. The defense has turned a bit of a corner here. 10 points, 17 points allowed, and through their last 4 games, they held the number one offense in the country to 26 points. It's been an impressive turnaround for that unit, I would say, which has been the Achilles heel for the Tigers for much of the season, or much of the last, basically, Brian Kelly era. So this is big for them. So I've had I've made some tweets about this too, because I've been looking at the total the whole time, and we were at 53.5, and then it was 54.5, and even last night. So I made a little tweet saying hold last night because the total got to 55 last night, and I was like, geez, are we gonna get to 55.5 here? Anyways, it did not last long. It came back down to 54.5. So I'm kicking myself a little bit here, but I think I like the under 54.5 in this one. Once again, I'm not sure it's the best bet for me at this point, but I don't know. Texas A&M has a defense that can help them stay in this game, and at least they can make this a one-dimensional offense for LSU, even though I don't think LSU cares about that a whole lot.
I think LSU's happy to be a one-dimensional offense, and the other aspect of that, I think LSU becoming a one-dimensional offense, if it succeeds, is going to force Texas A&M to have to throw the ball, which Texas A&M doesn't want to do.
No, they don't. But at least now they have some more confidence in Connor Wegman after that performance against Missouri. Obviously, once again, we can't I just said it the other way, so I have to accept it this side too. We're not as good as our best performance and not as good as our worst performance, but it was at least encouraging for a guy that people were like, "Are we out on Connor Wegman already?" But no, it was a good game from him. I think this will be another SEC kind of slugfest, and we're gonna lean towards an under here.
You are always true to your word on that. The day you come in here taking an SEC over is going to make me worry about, have you been taken hostage and this is a cry for help?
We need to go back to like basically Tua being back at Alabama and when they were playing Georgia in those years, like that's when they started just flinging it around all over the place.
We should start hitting some of these comments because they're piling up on us, which is a good thing. It's appreciated. This is how we have a great week 9. This is how we enjoy our Saturday mornings. And Andrew, if I'm going to dig into the comments, you know what I want to start off with. Eastern Michigan is short favorite at Akron. That number, I believe it's Akron. I haven't actually checked that number. Yes, at Akron. That number is too short. It's not a best bet because sometimes I need to give Chris Creighton a week off. But yes, Emu, 2.5 all day, every day. Absolutely. You got any Mac feedback for me on that?
I have no Mac feedback on E. You are the resident Emu man, so I'm just going to leave that to you.
It's too short of a number. Chris Creighton in any game with a close spread, I'm going to lean his way. And these thoughts are burgeoned by Parker making Emu a 6.5 point favorite, according to the old Parker Fleming numbers over at collegefootballinsiders.com. That helps the cause. And maybe I owe a slight apology. Maybe you owe a great apology to Wisconsin fans. Brett Joseph, a friend, is pointing out that, it's hard to jump on those benches in a primetime game. They've been enjoying themselves all day. They're not really jumping. It's self-preservation. At which point, I guess you're encouraging them to break each other's ankles and cause a massive problem.
No. I want them to be safe. Don't jump at all. Leave the stadium early. Just walk away and give this one to Penn State.
Don't go to the game.
There'll be better. I'm sure there's great things to do around Camp Randall that don't involve playing football today.
Wow. We are really running to the antithesis of most of what we believe.
Bucky's coming at us hard next week.
Hey, this one wasn't me. I'm usually the one throwing shade at Bucky. This one wasn't me. This was you.
Yeah, I'll take it.
And before we keep pushing forward, I want to hit this one because I haven't looked at this. I don't think I knew it was this high. Thoughts on the North Texas Tulane over from Carlos Bilbao. Do you know what that total is? Don't look. Do you know what it is?
I can't. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. No.
Oh, it's 70.
70.
7-0.
70.
Like 10 touchdowns.
That's interesting because Tulane isn't a terrible defensive team. They're 24th in the country in defensive success rate. So I'm a little.
Tulane's a good defensive team.
I think I'm just going to go bet the under right now at that number. Tulane is good enough defensively that I can feel confident in doing. I know North Texas doesn't play very much defense, but geez, that's.
Early in the week, on Sunday, I grabbed a significant share of Tulane 7.5. I'm going to stay off that total and just cheer for that spread to come home. I expected it to move. It did not. There are 7.5s and 8s. It did not move as I expected it to. I will not be joining you on the under, though.
Yeah, it's almost a principal play. I won't call it a best bet, but I might personally make that a wager later.
This is where the show is starting to turn us a profit on Saturday mornings. They are planting ideas in our head. But we should push forward. I want to hit a rapid fire section with you so we can sincerely tell people we discussed more than 4 games. We can come back to more comments later. Keep them coming. Now, I'm going to warn you that our rapid fire section will not be as rapid fire as usual because producer Jameson, in a very helpful manner, committed me to some things that I was just thinking about in the last 10 minutes, and now I have to execute. But why don't you start me off answering me? Agree or disagree? While Navy might be the most popular underdog bet in the country, talking outright ticket count at BetMGM as of Friday morning, Notre Dame, a 2-touchdown favorite, will have no trouble dispatching the playoff hopeful midshipmen. Agree or disagree?
Agree. I think Notre Dame's secondary is talented enough that they can play like man up on those Navy. Like Navy's offense is this story is both service academies. Great story this year. Navy throws the ball. They are really good at explosive plays in the passing game. Notre Dame's secondary is really, really good, and they can man up on those guys and focus on shutting down the run and Horvath at the same time. I agree with you.
I am going to interrupt our rapid fire section to make a best bet. This is why I said it will not be as quick as you expect. I was thinking about this. I mentioned to producer Jameson. He put it into our graphic. I just confirmed the number. The number is actually a little bit better than it's going to be in the graphic, but that is life. I am taking the over in this game, over 50.5. As of the show start, it was at neg 112 at DraftKings. I will count that as the best bet. And you mentioned Notre Dame's secondary. I'm pointing out that Notre Dame's got some defensive injuries. Benjamin Morrison, an All-American caliber cornerback, he's out for the year. Now, I'm not saying his replacement, Leonard Moore, is anything to worry about, but Navy's explosive plays could expose some of these young defenders. And if it happens once, that should be enough to push this game over because Navy's going to get its default touchdown or two anyway. If you get an explosive play added in there, which this version of the Navy offense is capable of, that really starts to escalate things, all while I think Notre Dame's going to run all over the midshipmen. Notre Dame is the number 5 EPA per rush offense in the country. They are learning to lean on it. That's why they've scored 37 points per game in the last 3 games. Quite frankly, let's just acknowledge Navy's defensive line is undersized compared to a team like Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is going to clear a path for Jeremiah Love, clear a path for Jadarian Price. If you go look at my game preview, I pretty much just listed off Notre Dame anytime touchdowns in the requisite same game parlay. I think Notre Dame is going to stack up runs. There are reasons Navy's defense ranks number 69 in EPA per rush against, number 96 in rushing success rate against. There are reasons opponents rush against Navy 5.6% more often than the average team would in a given game state. I'm fine. I think Notre Dame's finding points this weekend, and I think Navy's gonna find an explosive player or two. Over 50.5 is an interruption to our rapid fire segment so that I can get that in as a best bet.
Rapid fire.
Hey, producer Jameson was being proactive in building our bet graphic, and now I have to commit to that. But I've got another one for you. What was your immediate reaction to the news that Michigan, a 4-point favorite, is again starting Davis Warren at quarterback against Michigan State?
How quickly can I bet the Michigan State money line?
Did you? This is not the first you're learning this, correct? Did you bet the Michigan State money line with some of your own personal money?
I have a little sprinkle on the Michigan State money. The real reaction is I don't care. Like, we know what Davis Warren is. Like, who cares? That with Michigan's offense is a mess. I still can't believe that they spent all offseason building an offense around a guy who is just incapable of being on the field. I'm talking about Alex Orji here, but just crazy stuff at Michigan right now. I think that program is a bit of a mess. Yeah, obviously it's a rivalry game. Give me Michigan State.
Rivalry games, we like to say they get a little frisky. We're going to talk about one of those in a minute. Before we get to that rivalry game, which might slow down our rapid fire again, I want to bring up some college football drama, some college football lore that I don't think is already – I think we've forgotten it too much, and I want to get ahead of it because we're going to discuss it a lot this week. I have no doubt you remember the Manny Diaz, Miami, Mario Cristobal saga, one of the dirtiest you've ever seen a head coaches get done. We will inevitably delve into it next week, especially on our Tuesday show. Remember, folks, College Football 134 on all your podcast platforms. Duke heads to Miami next week. Do you think Manny Diaz and or Duke, an 11-point underdog, might have looked past SMU a little bit this weekend?
Yeah, a little bit. I would say my only fear about SMU right now is not having Maryland in this matchup. Otherwise, I would have not having him he's a big part of that offense. He's a very talented player, so that's a big loss for them. But I'm still Manny Diaz has done a good job. That defense is really good, but I'm just not a believer in that Duke offense. So, and you're on that you're on that SMU bandwagon. So I am. And Manny Diaz maybe looking back, even if his team doesn't know, looking past that a little bit could help SMU expose Duke a little bit just this week.
maybe get us some value against Miami next week, because we all know
Yeah.
how strongly you and I believe in Mario Cristobal.
So strongly.
Speaking of Mario Cristobal, agree or disagree, the latest edition of It Can Always Get Worse will come at Florida State's expense at Miami tonight, with the Hurricanes a 3-touchdown favorite.
Agree. Do you want to hear my stat, my 134 stat? There are 133 teams in college football, FBS, who have scored at least 21 points in a game this season. Can you name the other? The one.
Boy, my instinct said Kennesaw State or maybe Kent State, because they are the two worst teams in college football. Is it one of them?
It is not, in fact. It is, in fact, the Florida State Seminoles.
You know what? I'm going to use that idea. I'm going to use that thought, and I'm going to put another best bet into the rapid fire section. I am going to look at this rivalry and realize that these players know each other. Nobody's going to overlook Florida State, because plenty of Miami Hurricanes know Florida State players personally. They all grew up playing together. I think Miami is going to come into this game pretty motivated, and I think the greatest Miami weakness, one you and I have discussed, Cam Ward's propensity for problematic turnovers, doesn't matter against Florida State. I'm taking Miami as an 11.5 point first half favorite. Neg 110 at DraftKings. If you look at the reasons teams usually create turnovers, and I'm pulling some of this from a thread. Let's give credit where credit's due. From a thread from ESPN's David Hale. Usually turnovers come because the opponent is losing and they're desperate. Well, opponents have been leading on 80% of their offensive snaps against Florida State. Usually turnovers come from interceptions or pressure. Opponents run against Florida State 5.5% more often than should be expected. Among Power 4 schools, only Purdue has faced more designed rushes per share than Florida State. The reasons Florida State has produced only 3 takeaways this season are obvious, and that's going to hurt them against Cam Ward, because that's how you stop Cam Ward. You don't do it unless you take the ball away from him. Without doing that, I see Miami first half, neg 11.5, giving me some good value. We're putting that in as a rapid-fire best bet because producer Jameson has already put it on the bet graphic.
Now I want to go bet all the Cam Ward props again too. I see that. I saw the 3+ passing TDs. I see over 2.5 at Bet365 at -115. 4+ passing touchdowns is +280. I might sprinkle on that a little bit. Like the passing yard prop is 311.5, so it's a little lower. But after that debacle against Louisville, where he had a 308 yards with 12 minutes to go and couldn't get another 13 goddamn yards. But anyways, I'm not bitter.
We will continue to interrupt our rapid fire segment because Tyler Krennick has asked a pertinent question here. If Miami goes undefeated in the regular season and then probably loses to Clemson in the ACC championship game, is Ward winning the Heisman a near lock? Their schedule is pretty easy the remainder of the year. Well, Tyler obviously was listening to us on Tuesday. I will point out last night, Cam Ward became the Heisman frontrunner. As Ashton Jeanty was trailing and not racking up numbers, he slipped behind, and it has not moved back. So right now at MGM, and I'm using MGM because that's what I was looking at last night, Cam Ward is +175 to win the Heisman. Ashton Jeanty, 300. Dylan Gabriel, +325. And then it's a massive leap to number 4, Travis Hunter, +1,400.
Okay, so let's just bring up his stats here real quick. He already has 24 touchdowns through 7 games, 5 games left in the regular season, right? So that's about 38 touchdowns we're looking at for the season. Anything above 35 touchdowns for him and like 4,000 yards, I think it's a pretty good bet, especially if they're undefeated.
Last night, UNLV was up 10-3, getting the ball back, and I went and checked the odds available to me, and I grabbed some Cam Ward +240. And now UNLV lost that game, to my frustration. But I think just stopping Jeanty once is going to hurt that narrative plenty.
I saw Jinty's rushing prop yesterday was 194.5, and I was just like, okay, I'll put a unit on the under. Like the number was getting so absurd. Like he still rushed for 128 yards, which is a very good rushing game for most people, and he missed his mark by 70 yards. So hopefully they keep giving us that. But it's just how college football is, right? Like that's.
It's a narrative-based
that
award, and as
it's
soon
narrative
as
based.
a group of 5
It
running
was
back struggles against anybody, it's going to cost them in the narrative.
it was gonna be his margin of error was so thin. Like he was to keep going for almost 200 yards a game was asking almost the impossible. Like he's really good. Don't get me wrong, but
Right.
it's
We're
just
not knocking
impossible
him.
to keep
Bobby
up with.
Newport, let's make clear. Let's make clear Bobby Newport. We both think he played well. He played against an underrated rush defense. And I'm not trying to knock him. I just saw the narrative change coming.
Yeah, especially with the way that award voting goes.
Now, there was one more item on our rapid fire, which has not been rapid because it never has been. Have you given any thought to Nevada at Hawaii? Hawaii a 2-point favorite? I haven't, but it's a Hawaii test, and I take pride in passing the Hawaii tests. I've got no lean. I'm looking for any help from you or the chat. Okay, we're gonna need the chat to come and help me out on that. Bobby Newport's already saying Nevada all day. Not what I was expecting to hear, but I'm gonna have to get some influence there so that I can pass the Hawaii test tonight. But we will come back to more comments in a few. We should pat ourselves on the back for again some Tuesday line value. Now it was not as overwhelming as usual. We will effectively split our Tuesday numbers. Your Washington, Indiana total picked up against you. Now 54.5 after you played the under 53.5. But the Oklahoma, Mississippi first half under that you played out of your SEC first half under edict, that's come your way down a point. So you evened out, as did I. The Western Michigan first half spread, neg 9.5 is now up to neg 10.5. But App State by 7.5 is now down to an even 7. So our Tuesday show brought us value, but not as overwhelmingly as usual.
Also, the Friday night curse, or I guess it wasn't Friday. It's a Wednesday night this year, or this week. It was Quentin Cooley and
yes,
Liberty.
the two of us combined to go 0-2 on Wednesday night. I'm not that upset
College
about it
football's
because I think
crazy.
what we really learned is Liberty.
They're fraud. They were fraudulent. Very, very fraudulent.
You're insulting frauds if you call Liberty fraudulent. It was so pathetic, and I'm happy for Kennesaw State, but we shouldn't get that. We don't need to get diverted like that. We need to keep moving forward. But that Tuesday show, folks, we record that Tuesday afternoons. It's out Tuesday evenings. Go find College Football 134 on all your podcast platforms. Subscribe and review so we know you're getting that Tuesday episode value. We're going to find some more value right now. I'm going to lead us off if that's okay with you, Andrew.
Go for it, buddy.
And I'm leading this off because I'm running counter to some arguments you made on Tuesday where you took that Washington, Indiana total under. I am taking Indiana by 5.5. Available neg 108 at DraftKings because I firmly believe, as I said Tuesday, buy on bad news, sell on good. The bad news that Curtis Work is out has knocked this line down too far. Indiana has known all week that Curtis Work is out. Indiana has been able to figure out what does backup quarterback Tavon Jackson prefer? What are his 5 passes that he is absolute confidence he can make? And now we both can win. He can make those passes that can cover by a touchdown and your total still falls under. I think Tavon Jackson is good enough. He's not great, but he was 7 of 8 for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns in that blowout of Nebraska last week. He averaged 7.1 yards per attempt last year. I will always buy on bad news and selling good. I think there's been an overreaction here, and I'm going to buy that bad news and get Indiana. When this fell below 6, I felt no choice but to make it a best bet.
Yeah, and guess what? I've got a best bet in this game too. Another one. So I was looking around during the week, and with that kind of same line of thinking, I was like, okay, so how are people going to react to this matchup? And I saw Justice Ellinson's rushing yard prop hit the board at 57.5. Now, the Hoosiers have 2 good running backs right now in Tyson Lawton and Ellison. They split the carries pretty evenly. Lawton has 73, or Ellison has 73. Lawton has 76, combining for over 900 yards and 5 yards per carry this year. And you would say, oh, well, maybe this Hoosiers offense won't be as effective because, yeah, they pick out those 4 or 5 plays, but then they're just going to rely on running the football and becoming a little more one-dimensional. Well, Washington has allowed nearly 400 rushing yards in the last 2 weeks to 2 of the most one-dimensional offenses in the country in Michigan and Iowa. And
You mean
so
good
that's
Iowa
not
and bad Iowa?
Exactly. So that's not bothering me very much in this matchup either. the Huskies, like they have a suspect rush defense, obviously a 62nd in success rate versus the rush. Ellison has obviously been the more explosive back of the two, so he's why I prefer him in this one. 7 yards per carry. He's gone over this number in 5 of Indiana's 7 games this season. So yeah, over 57.5 for Justice Ellison here.
We are somewhat exposed on Indiana, Washington today.
Come on, Indiana.
I'm gonna openly admit that off the top of my head, I don't even know what channel that's on. I'm pulling that up right now so that I know. Okay, Big Ten Network, noon Eastern. I knew it was noon Eastern. Big Ten Network is going to be must-watch viewing for the College Football 134 crew. Didn't realize we were going to have 3 bets on that. Good for us. Good for us. Good for us. Happy for us. Let me take us elsewhere. Let me go look at, and we got another quarterback confirmation this morning. I was real worried this number would move too quickly on me for me to justify including it on the show. And instead, the number I am looking at has moved half a point. But folks, if I saw this morning, it is still, nope, I am still seeing 10 available. Virginia Tech, neg 10 versus Georgia Tech. This to me is a great opportunity for Virginia Tech to get a nice win against an ACC foe, because Haynes King is out and Georgia Tech's offense really struggles without Haynes King. Last week we saw it's a one-dimensional offense without him, and that one dimension is Jamal Haynes. Now, Virginia Tech's run defense is not excellent at all, but being able to hone in on a one-dimensional offense will help it. Meanwhile, the Hokies offense has taken off since it turned Kyron Jones loose. He was hemmed in to start the season. That's just a coaching mistake. In the last 5 games, 42 rush. Yeah, it was a mistake. You knew what you had and you didn't use it mistake.
Oh, frustratingly bad.
In the last 5 games, he has rushed, and I've adjusted these numbers for sacks, 42 rushes for 318 yards, a 7.6 yards per rush average. It's no surprise then that in the last 5 games, they've cleared their team total in 4. It's no surprise then in the last 5 games, they've covered the spread in 4. I think that now being a worthwhile offense going against Georgia Tech's one-dimensional offense without Haynes King, 10 is a comfortable number for me given that dichotomy of offenses.
Sorry, did you say, I might have missed this looking at another stat sheet here, but did you say Georgia Tech 114th in success rate against the pass?
I did not. No, I did not. I was going to leave that there for you to chime in and help my handicap.
Perfect. There you go. So I was I almost made this a best bet as well. So I'm with you here on that one.
That line is moving. So if you want that 10 or 10.5, because Haynes King being out, Georgia Tech, and you could go look at a Georgia Tech team total under as well if you really felt like it.
Yeah, for sure. So let's keep going. I'm going to go to the Big Ten, and I'm taking Illinois plus 13.5 in the first half against Oregon. This is an interesting start time, right? Like 3:30 Eastern in Oregon. So that was that 12:30 kickoff there, if I'm doing my math correct.
Man, you really struggle with time zones. It's not that complicated.
Oh, get out of here.
Great.
We're in the weird time. We're in the random Brazil Atlantic time zone out here. We're in the same time zone as Brazil. We're in our own little world. It's a bubble. Leave my bubble alone. Illinois obviously has, I think, punched above their weight this year. Parker's charts say they win, but maybe they shouldn't win so much. And Oregon has obviously improved throughout the season. That said, Illinois is well coached, and one thing they do well is tackle. Despite if you look at some of their success rate numbers, they do tackle well. And I think what they're going to focus on here is taking away. They're good at taking away what you do best, and I think they're going to try to take away the passing game in this matchup, and they will let the Ducks run on them a little bit in the first half. But I've also been impressed with Altmaier and this Illinois offense. I think that combination of things where the Ducks are maybe running the ball a little more, and I think Altmaier and this Fighting Illini offense can be somewhat successful against an Oregon defense. 49th versus the Russian success rate, 40th on passes. Like, good, not great. Like, and Altmaier has proven to be a baller at least a little bit. So I think they keep it close in the weird early start for Oregon, which I don't think will really affect Illinois so much going to the West Coast. And yeah, so here we go. Illinois plus 13.5 in the first half. I think that, or I like the first half a little more because I think Oregon could open things up in the second half when, I don't know, maybe some of those tackles don't get tackled because Oregon has some talented guys. But yeah, 13 plus 13.5 in the first half for Illinois.
We can both win. I wrote this game up, and my intended game state runs counter, but effectively you're suggesting my intended game state is just going to show up later. My intended game state was Oregon's going to get a 21-0 lead and then shut down, much like they did against Purdue on that Friday night 8 days ago. That can happen.
Calling. I agree. This game has. So your best bet was your write up play was the under, is what you're saying?
Yes. In the end, my write up was the under because my game state was Oregon's going to get enough of a lead and shut things down. This is a situational spot that could be some worry, just like Purdue was a week ago. But Oregon did that against Purdue, and it ended up 35-0 because Purdue was giving them short fields. The real score was 21-0 aside from the short fields.
If they did blow them out, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, Oregon blew them out. I wouldn't be shocked. But at the same time, I just really, Illinois has just shown so much fight, and they're so well coached. And the thing I really like about them is that they tackle well, which is important in college football.
Win. Like I said, 21-7 first half, 35-7 game, we both win. 42-7 game, we both win. I think my total I got was around 51. Now, I want to move forward with a total. I'm not making the total play, but the total being so low is part of why I'm making this bet. And I am not being conservative today. I'm going to have 6 bets total, and these last 2 are humdingers. If you remember back when you were fighting our coworker John Metler and having this really petty argument about Service Academy unders, I came in to support you.
I have that shirt on right now.
Please don't. Okay, that could have gone so much worse. That could have been a problem.
No.
I came in to support you, as any good podcast co-host would, and pointed out that it's not just Service Academy unders. It's any unders under 39. Unders on 39 or lower in the last decade have now cashed 57% of the time. So when I see this Utah-Houston number, and I'm going to confirm what it is right now, I believe it is about 37.
Stop. They're already dead. Stop.
Well,
this was a Utah pod.
If we're going to pivot,
they're already
we're going to
dead.
pivot. Let's change course aggressively. I'm taking the Houston money line at plus 180 because, in part, this total is so low. Utah offensive coordinator Andy Ludwig stepped down late on Sunday night, and the Utah players this week seem more sullen about that than you'd even expect. Utah has averaged 12 points per game in its last 3 games against defenses that averaged 54.3 in SP Plus rankings. Houston is a little bit worse than that, number 68, but not by a lot. I see this total falling. I'm looking at a defensive head coach in Houston, head coach Willie Fritz. I'm going to say that Willie Fritz needs to get a good win at home this season. And while Utah's not good, Andrew, I know it hurts to hear Utah's not good.
I know.
Still, Houston beating Utah would be a good win for Willie Fritz to hang his hat on this season.
So good
the variance of a low-scoring game, plus 180 on the short home underdog. I realize I just caused you grief. Jameson's calling me out for the Utah heel turn.
You hate giving me grief. I'm sure you're going to lose so much sleep over it.
I had Utah Big 12 futures. Yes, I almost just said Pac-12 futures, but I had those last year too. I felt that pain. I'm just not going to be stuck on past mistakes. I'm going to move forward with what I've learned and take that Houston money line.
Well, pour one out for Utah. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know. Houston's not good either, though, so I'm just so stunned.
Oh, no, this is very much I am holding my nose and taking Houston, but it's the home underdog. Willie Fritz really should this is his chance. With his defense, he can get this win. Just this one. Beating Rice doesn't do anything for anybody. They beat Rice at home earlier this season. Get one conference home win. This is the one.
Okay, so I'm going to go. I got one more best bet for you here, Doug. And I'm going to another school which is in a bit of turmoil right now. And I am fading Southern Miss, who fired their coach this week as well, Will Hall. And I forget the name of the guy who was the interim coach. He's been around the team for a while. And he came out and he said, "Oh man, the boys are hurting. they're hurting because the season's been tough. They're hurting because everybody loved Coach Hall. So this is not one of those situations where, hey, we had to make a change at coach and we're gonna be motivated. Like, it sounds like they are number one right now on the quit list, and they're going up against a James Madison team that, while inconsistent, is much, much, much better than Southern Miss at this point. James Madison has been infuriatingly inconsistent, but they rank 14th in defensive success rate, 44th in offensive success rate, and they're going up against Southern Miss, who probably want the reason that Will Hall is fired. They rank 130th in EPA margin on offense and 130th in EPA margin on defense. So nothing really going well for Southern Miss right now. I think that James Madison should just be able to, like, they have a pretty balanced offense this year, but I think they're just going to probably run all over the Eagles in this one. I'm laying the 24 points here. I think it gets a little ugly here for Southern Miss.
That is another game that I like the play. I worry Southern Miss might just get a backdoor touchdown. So if I'm you, I'm hoping James Madison gets this to 35 before things can just be nonsense.
Yeah, I'm hoping this is kind of like one of the not that we're going to get the UNC performance out of them, but if I'm expecting like at least 4 touchdowns in the first half, I would say.
Now, let me finish this off. Let me finish this off with one that is unexpected. But again, I'm not being conservative today, Andrew. I am.
You're not.
I'm not trying to. I'm not being over aggressive. These are plays that I like. These are plays that I saw value. And then producer Jameson put 2 that I was thinking about on our bet graphic, so I had to commit to them. Appreciate it, Jameson. I'm actually being sincere for once. My last play today is taking the New Mexico money line at Colorado State. And folks, the UNLV redemption tour begins now, because if New Mexico proves me right and wins, Colorado State is now back with UNLV with a loss in the Mountain West, and I can move forward to hoping that UNLV can get revenge on Boise State in the Mountain West Championship game. The Lobos have covered the spread in 3 straight games, exceeding expectations by an average of 5 points. Bronco Mendenhall has taken what was supposed to be just a disaster of an offense. You remember our August shows, we were just crying in worry for what New Mexico's offense was going to be. And instead, it's now effectively an average offense. Colorado State is without star receiver Torrey Horton the rest of the season. I think it's going to be very difficult for Colorado State to keep up with what has become an average New Mexico offense. That's a compliment. I mean it in a nice way. It's an average. This spread opened at +6.5 this week. The spread is now down to +4.5. I don't think it's fallen far enough. I'm taking that money line. Let me add one more thought for you. I mentioned the UNLV redemption tour begins now. You're a Colorado State player. What were they doing last night? They were doing what I was doing. They were watching Boise State UNLV well into the night. Now, I'm not saying they're sleep deprived. They didn't have to get up and do the show before sunrise. But I am saying they were not focused last night. They were not thinking about their game today. I really increasingly like this New Mexico money line at +165 at BetMGM.
Yeah, a really bad defense there at Colorado State. 107th in success rate.
And again, when I'm calling New Mexico's offense average, I mean it as a compliment, because they were going to be a disaster on offense this season. That was a real worry that we discussed at length at some points. Now, Andrew, that's all of our bets. Do you want to take a little bit of time and rip through some of these comments?
Let's do it.
I want to start off with things that are more your specialty, because James Ferguson was asking us about some player props. I'm assuming he's talking about Jeremiah Smith with this over 74.5, now 80.5 receiving yards. I can't think of any other Jay Smith of note. Do you have any quick read on that one?
Over. He's the quick read on that is that line got posted, and people were quick to hammer on the over. I would still lean over there. Nebraska's secondary has looked a little vulnerable against good passers. So if Ohio State is a team that is able to combat that Nebraska defensive line, they have the offensive line to keep their quarterback upright and get the ball to Smith. So I would lean over.
Let me go to James one more time. He's got, I'm assuming this is Will Howard, plus 150 anytime touchdown, now down to neg 115. That number, Ohio State Nebraska number, has climbed all week, and I expected it to fall below. I was hoping it would fall to 23.5. Then I was going to take Ohio State. It's now up to 26 at DraftKings. I'm assuming that anytime touchdown is pretty much just moved in conjunction with that spread climbing.
150 isn't bad, though. He is the second most rushing touchdowns on the team for them this year.
Well, look at you saying James got good value. Friend Tyler Krennick is asking us about this UCF neg 2.5 number. That has been a wonder. I've heard a lot of people wonder. UCF hosting BYU. BYU kind of in the driver's seat in the Big 12. Now a road underdog. Why? What do you see that's making that line kind of fishy in that respect?
It's fishy because BYU's... I guess it's fishy because BYU has looked like the better team, right? Like that's what we're saying.
People
but
don't
the reason
they
don't believe in them, sure, but like BYU's weakness on right now is probably its rush defense, right? Like you can make the case they rank 75th in success rate against the rush, and UCF has a power running game. Like it should. That's my only thought in that, why the line is what it is.
I will point out Parker's numbers would have favored BYU by 12.5.
Oh, damn.
It's the thing with BYU, and I was talking about this last night with some folks. I don't know that they're getting the appreciation they should for their offensive and defensive line play. I think BYU might really have some trenches this season. And that's why in this maddeningly chaotic Big 12, maybe BYU comes out in the end because they have strong trench play. That might be enough. If I'm going to play that game, you know what? I'm taking BYU money line. I'm putting that on. Not a best bet. Not a best bet, but I'm putting that on my bets the show talked me into today. So, Tyler, if BYU wins, I will give a nod to you for sparking those thoughts.
UCF got on my they're on the list after their performance against Colorado. They don't get the faith in me anymore.
I can understand that. We discussed the SMU Duke game. It's a possible look-ahead moment for Duke, which has us both leaning SMU. I don't think I'm going to bet it at the moment, but if I see that slip, if that falls below 11, I might have to act. I like Duke. I like what Manny Diaz is doing, but it might be a look-ahead moment.
Yeah, for sure.
And we had Bobby asking us about the Michigan State +4. We talked about that. He just couldn't pull the trigger on it. I'm not going to touch that game because it's the Michigan State game. Who cares? They're both bad.
Crazy stuff will happen.
Who cares? Somebody will have a bad punt.
Boring, crazy stuff in a 13-17 game will happen.
Do you have any thoughts on Bowling Green Toledo?
What's the line right now? I don't even have that in front of me. I think
pulling up Max. Hold on. Toledo by 2.5.
Bowling Green money line. Let's go. That's my thought right here. I think those are pretty two evenly matched teams. Matt gets crazy. Give me the money line in Bowling Green as a just instant reaction here. It's not going to be a best bet, but I like what Bowling Green is doing right now.
Real quick curveball. Do you know who the only unbeaten team is in the MAC in conference play?
Is it Bowling Green?
It's Western Michigan.
Western Michigan.
Western Michigan is 3-0, and we've got a whole chunk of teams at 2-1, including both of these. I think the winner of this game becomes the presumptive favorite, along with Miami of Ohio.
Western Michigan will also still be undefeated after this week, right?
Well, yeah, I hope so, especially after the first half, because I played that first half number. Let's wrap up. We've got some people cheering against Notre Dame. James Ferguson is hoping Notre Dame misses the playoff. Any loss would do it. Any Notre Dame loss will knock them out of the playoff. I don't think 100%. It's today. I really don't. And we have that, yes, the Notre Dame Navy total continues to fall. I don't understand. I have had some people hypothesize to me it's because of weather. Look, folks, it doesn't matter if it's windy. Notre Dame and Navy are not going to throw the ball much. They're going to run, and they're going to run successfully. And we have Todd Clinton in here saying that he's surprised South Alabama is as much of a favorite against UL Monroe. I agree. I considered if you, I don't know how much, if there's anything on the sheet I don't want to show. As I was looking at my plays last night, Monroe plus 8.5, now plus 7.5 was a thought. I am surprised that it's still north of a touchdown, and I know personally I will have some money line action on the Monroe Warhawks. Yes, the Monroe Warhawks.
So yeah, and here's another one where Parker, he has Monroe. They should be the favorites by 6 points here.
I will definitely have some. You know what? We're going to add that to the bets the show talked me into. And I'm going to hope that thought process turns money again this week. And now we've got Bill telling me for my Hawaii test that the Rainbows have taken a ton of cash. I'm a contrarian at heart. So maybe that's going to get me to the window on Nevada. I really don't know. I'm going to bet that game at some point.
Yeah. I think Nevada's the play, right?
Okay. I have now found 5 bets from this show. We will see if they turn a profit.
Well, the only thing for me there real quick is just I thought Hawaii's offense would be more like a Hawaii offense this year, and it hasn't been that.
It hasn't been. Timmy Chain always had his work cut out for him. That was always a known factor. Sure. I think maybe he succeeded more than we expected. This is year 2, right?
No, this is year 1, isn't it?
No, he was definitely there last year. He was definitely there last year. I think they did better than we expected last year, and we kind of forgot how much work he had to do. But let's not go into the existential crisis that is Hawaii football, and let's instead recap our bets and then get the heck out of here. You lead us off with a recap, will you?
Okay, so earlier in the week, I have Washington, Indiana under 53.5. Also in that game, I now have from today Jordan Ellison over 57.5 rushing yards. Also earlier in the week, I have Oklahoma, Mississippi first half under. From today, I love my Penn State minus 6.5 play. We're going Illinois plus 13.5 in the first half. And James Madison minus 24 to just rumble all over the quitter of the week in that Southern Miss.
It's only the quitter of the week because UAB has the week off. My bets this week. I lost one on Wednesday when Liberty did not care to show up against Kennesaw State. I have the Western Michigan first half, 9.5 against Kent State. That number has climbed into double digits. I have App State by 7.5 against Georgia State in the return to Boone after Hurricane Helene. That's now down to 7 last I checked, but I'm gonna keep the faith on that one. Indiana by 5.5 against Washington. That's an overreaction to Curtis Rourke's absence. Houston money line against Utah because I think a low-scoring game favors the defensive head coach. Virginia Tech by 10 against Georgia Tech. Notre Dame Navy over 50.5. This graphic is missing. Miami in the first half by 11.5 against Florida State. I think if you cannot turn Cam Ward over, you're going to get burned. And then lastly, the New Mexico money line against Colorado State, not only because the UNLV redemption tour begins today. Andrew, I think that about does it for us, doesn't it?
That sounds like a good week of college football to me.
Everybody enjoy a Saturday of college football. College Football 134 will be in your podcast feeds and live every Saturday morning to preview that day's games and discuss all things college football gambling. So subscribe, come on back for more. We will record again Tuesday because in my heart, I believe 2 things. UNLV can still win the Mountain West, and the Timberwolves will beat the Raptors tonight. Tough break, Andrew.